Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Get Informed with Wajih. I'm Wajih Lion. Thank you for coming. We have a special guest for you today. I warned you that we'll be bringing Mr. Piotr on our podcast soon and this morning. And thankfully, he has some extra time to spend with us today. And he'll be having his latest analysis. He'll be sharing his latest analysis on the U.S. war with Iran with us here soon. We'll talk, maybe we'll ask several questions about Ukraine as things continue to escalate between Russia and Ukraine. I think that there could be a question or two there thrown regarding this latest update regarding Israeli airstrikes on the southern Lebanon as it is taking place during the U.S. war with Iran, and it is part of the U.S. war with Iran. Welcome to the show, Mr. Piotr. It's been a minute. I know we've been trying to figure it out and have been dropping the ball every time.
Yes, hello. No, I don't think we've been dropping the ball. You just have your weekly or daily updates with Malcolm and Jacob. And I should say, actually, Jacob and I have started our weekly, may do it more than once a week, um, conversations about Ukraine. I know you mentioned in a previous conversation a lot of your viewers and you wanted to see us talk. So we finally did, and it was great. So definitely going to be more weekly sessions with Jacob on Ukraine. If people are interested, subscribe for that. But
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, what's to say? The last time we spoke, I think, was probably a couple of weeks back. But
Yes.
yeah, not as
Uh,
much. Still stuff happening.
just between shuffling between going to war and having peace talks, that's exactly been the rhythm of this conflict. This conflict continues to raise uh, similarities in the White House when they try to go in Vietnam. They're like, everything is fine. Don't worry about it. Like, we're not gonna, it's gonna be short. It's an in and out type thing. And I'm seeing the exact same thing being applied right now. What do you think about our President Donald Trump in the United States' current strategy toward Iran?
Well, I think that there's a lot here to take away, would you? Trump is a complex character. He's a multifaceted character with a lot of intellectual diversity, I think, and someone who really knows what he's doing. In foreign policy. I'm joking. He has no idea. I didn't understand what you meant when you said strategy and Trump in the same sentence. Um, I don't know. I
You
mean, like
got me
you asked
for a
me, would it
second.
be
I was
more?
like coming in. I was trying to see what you're about to say.
You should get used to my sarcasm at this point. I'm. It's always entertaining to speak with you because I can make these really ludicrous statements and think this is not that funny, but then you'll be laughing your head off, and I'm like, cool. I'm a comedian as well as a analyst, so it's nice. You make me feel good about myself, so thank you. No, I mean Trump's an idiot. I mean, what's there to say? He doesn't have a strategy. He never had a strategy. I had Trita on earlier, Trita Parsi, and he was saying Trump had an idea. It was a bad idea, but it was an idea, and I don't even know if I agree with that. Their idea was just to do something with Iran. That was it. Just try to change Iran. They didn't know in what capacity, right? Just do something to change the country to make it more favorable to Trump and America's interests, and it's a complete dumpster fire. It's worse than a dumpster fire. It's burning tires in a dumpster. If there's an analogy there or something, right?
I've seen
It's
that done before, actually.
oh wow, okay. Which part of Portland, Oregon were you in? But
In the Middle East, but yeah.
No, I remember there was a protest a couple of years back in Portland where they this left leaning group sort of occupied the middle of the city square or something. It's really weird. Anyway, no, all I'm trying to say is that the Trump administration it's a complete lackluster, feckless group of people who are infighting as much as they are trying to fight Iran. And frankly, the one thing
Mhm.
I would bet on is that the fighting internally is more effective. Right now, we have two main things that I think come to mind: um, a MOU or a deal of some sort between Oman and Iran, which the
That's
United
right.
States is completely being left out of. Trump has no say. And the depletion of US ammo, the stockpiles, right? There was this spat between Hegseth and Trump this morning in Camp David, and everyone's losing their minds, going, "Oh my god!" And especially Trump,
What happened
who's
at Camp David? Tell us. Spell the T. Spell that T.
I will not, thank you. I'm English. I will very much enjoy my cup of tea. No spillage. I just thought of that quite good actually. No, I mean, look, there was simply that the president, how do you say, he
Oh, you're back in mute. You're still muted.
hear me? Hello?
No. Yes, now that works.
Okay, that was weird. Um, no, what I was saying is that the Hegseth was reprimanded by Trump. I'm trying to look it up. That's what I'm typing. President Hegseth, yeah, Trump Hegseth, he broke silence row because even Hegseth is beginning to have to point out to um, Trump that there's an issue with munitions potentially. At the end of the day, Hegseth has to sort of do what he is in position to do and post. But even that's not liked by Donald Trump. There was apparently the two clashing over this alleged weapons shortage, which is obviously due to it. And Trump called the claim treasonous and insisting he's extremely happy with Hegseth, which I think is complete crap. The two had a massive spat. It was badly received. And this is all because the Trump administration is unable to accept the fact that they're running out of ammunition. The United States, I think one statistic was saying they've depleted sort of 70% or 60% or some, and this isn't just I don't know, one type of missile. It's across the whole spectrum, right? So tomahawks as well, interceptors. I'm not a military analyst, so I don't know the exact type of missiles in question. Um, More for me, that's important here isn't just types of missiles; it's the overall strategic implications this has, in that the United States cannot convey itself as a country in power or like it has its coherency together, right? There is no grand strategy here in the Middle East. And also because of a hypothetical, right, as a deterrence, that's the word I'm looking for, as deterrence. This is poor strategic deterrence, because if the United States doesn't have enough missiles to defend itself or conduct its own operations, let alone give them to Ukraine, well, hang on a minute, what about then China? This whole idea
Hmm.
that America goes to some grand war with China over Taiwan, which, I mean, I study China a lot, so I'm pretty confident in saying I don't think that's on the horizon for a while now. But they don't have enough ammo. They don't have enough weapons to do anything. So,
What do you do at this point when you run out of? Well, you're not a military analyst. That's a question for Malcolm, I guess. But at that point, once you run out of ammo, like I'm genuinely curious, what's the U.S. military going to do? Cyber warfare?
oh, I don't have to be a millet. I don't have to be Malcolm. I mean, Malcolm knows his stuff. I know my stuff. Um, you can't. There's not much you can do. Cybernetics is not going to be enough to do anything against Iran. The Americans did that. They did that in 2009 with a system called Stuxnet, which was one of the most advanced malware programs in history, focusing on the incubation, if you like, of a program, of a system, of a malware that was sat dormant for about 18 months, learning the, I don't know, programs, the rhythms, the
Mhm.
patterns, the whatever. And then it was activated and it hit, sort of like AI now. But at the time, it was pretty advanced. It was pretty remarkable stuff.
Above
That's
its
not a
time. Ahead of its
But
time.
that
I was about to say it's English.
certainly, but it was state of the art. But it's not enough to bring down a government. It's not enough to bring down Mojtaba if he's even alive. So, what else do you have? You could reimpose a naval blockade. I guess it's relatively low
Like that
cost,
would do anything.
but that will do much because you need other forms. So the other option is even bigger operations, right? You do what you call a shock and awe. So shock and awe is this military strategy where you try to overwhelm or intimidate your enemy through so much pressure quickly and intensely that they just succumb, loss of morale, desertions, etc. But this is what we saw with the invasion of Iraq in 2003, when the Allies or coalition started bombing in March 19th, 20th. Saddam Hussein was expecting
Hmm.
a sort of aerial bombardment approach of what we saw in the Gulf War of the 90s, right? And this is, I think, what a lot of the Iranians were expecting. But now the Trump administration doesn't really have any other option left because the Iranians have relocated so much of their stockpiles, enriched uranium, etc.,
Hmm.
lower down. So the only other option is a large scale land invasion, which, well, the Iranians are more than ready for and welcoming. We've seen Garibaldi, the head of the parliament, speaker, etc., speak with glee about you just try. That's what the IRGC want. That's what the besieged militia want, because they are and ideologically driven, motivated fighters who will fight to the death because of their cause or whatever, in a way that the Americans just aren't. And if the Americans don't have um, one last thing, but like if the Americans don't have the uh, backup from launchers, from the Navy, from the Air Force, because of a lack of munitions, then they are going to be severely at risk. Right? This is you need a ground force of about 500,000 at least 300,000 was the
Well,
max.
even if you have ground troops, you still need artillery. You still need precision
That's what I'm saying.
strikes.
If you don't have the artillery, if you don't have the Navy, if you don't have the Air Force providing support and whatever else, clearing out certain areas, um, you're going to get bogged down, and then it will just be it'll just become the Iranians will just use the terrain to their advantage, asymmetrical warfare, guerrilla warfare, and it becomes a quagmire. It'll become like a sort of a dry, arid version of Vietnam or something.
You know,
No, it's absolutely insane at this point. The best thing Trump can do is find a way to find a peace deal, frame it to his base, whoever is left of it, saying, hey, this is better than the JCPOA was. Because at the moment, his poll data is tanking. He's got a net negative poll data percentage of 25. That's the lowest of any president at any point in history. Um, I'm not saying I support the Democrats, right? The Democrats are in bad shape as well. The amount of infighting from the moderates to the center to the left. But like, for fuck's sake, if the Democrats are still looking more favorable than Donald Trump, it shows you just how bad Donald Trump's favoritism and impact on the GOP has become. Anyway.
eh, here's the thing. Anytime you look at an organization and they want to start a project or they want to start a mission, you have to have a mission statement. You have to have an end goal. You have to have certain things you want to achieve, and then you get up. The Trump administration gave us many things they wanted to achieve, and they haven't achieved a single one of them. They said they wanted regime change by conducting regime decapitation.
Hmm.
They had they had people in line to fill that position next, but they killed him on accident. Degrade Iran capabilities of getting a nuclear weapon, degrade Iranian military capabilities of any attacks in the region, destroying the Iranian Navy. I think when you look at all of these come at different levels of importance, and yet we want to achieve all of them and haven't gotten to a single one of them. Am I getting this correctly, or am I just making this shit up?
Can you rephrase what you mean?
Meaning, like the United States has made many goals, and they're still distracted and don't have a single goal to achieve. They haven't achieved a single goal of those many five
Oh, I see.
big
Right.
goals.
Well, no, but that's because they keep moving the goalposts. The goals have moved, right? The strategic goals um have first it was about regime change. Trump infamously tweeted out or so bombastedly and aggressively shouting, that we will change and liberate the Iranian people from their regime, which don't get me wrong, I very much want. People seem to think that sort of because you're critical of the military operations by one side, you support the opponents of the other, which is
No.
it's a very lazy binary interpretation of a very complex issue. No, it's that was the first thing, and then because the decapitation strategy only partially worked, didn't really work. They brought out that White House communique around March 13th, I think, at least 2-3 weeks afterwards, where they purposefully tried to save their own ass. When it became apparent how badly this was going in the first 2-3 weeks, they, defaulted to the diplomacy side by saying, "Hey, no, this is all part of the plan, and this is our plan." It's never about regime change. It's about first and foremost uh, incapacitating the military, the navy, the obtaining the nuclear enrichment, and securing the Strait of Hormuz to ensure that's always open. So what was it before? I think there was sand in the Strait of Hormuz before or something. I'm not entirely sure what was the problem, but we needed to open it because apparently it's very firmly shut. So just such a waste of time. Anyway, these are the four strategic slash military objectives, and they've achieved nothing of them. The thing that they've probably come to the closest is a degradation of the navy, but not enough that they were able to mine the strait. The Iranians are on the verge of a deal with the Omanis over the strait, of which I say the United States is completely sidelined out of. Trump has no say over that. A couple of people I've spoken to over the past few days, the Gulf states have more of an input, and that's simply because they want to remain relatively, I won't say friendly with Iran, obviously not, but like they don't want to be they don't want a risk of escalation, especially if there is a stockpile issue with the United States. The Gulf states recognize that they need assurances from the US, which can't be kept now.
Mhm.
So they want to, the Saudis are the best example of this. They're not making friends with the Iranians, obviously not, but both of them recognize they have to be pragmatic and coexisting,
Mhm.
recognizing that neither is going anywhere,
Like a stag hunt.
like a
Like,
stag hunt.
yeah, like the Iranians and the Saudis, whether they want to cooperate with each other or not, they have to find a way to cooperate with each other because the Saudis understand the Americans are not going to support them. So, supporting the Iranians and finding somewhere to cooperate with them in the long run will allow the Saudis to finally get their ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, whether they pay the $2 million fee or the 4% fee. They don't give a damn at this point. They just want their ships out of the strait. So it's a stag hunt because you need to basically have multiple people to hunt a bigger animal than if you would get distracted and go after the rabbit. So I think, in a way, the Saudis are not wanting to be friends with the Iranians. The rest of the Gulf states don't want to be friends with the Iranians, but they are forced to be like, okay, you want a couple $1 billion? We give you a couple $1 billion. What else do you need? We'll work shit out real quick. Could you just open the Strait of Hormuz? I think that's where the Gulf states are at. They are talking to Trump and trying to calm him down because he's the person that is continuing this process and not getting to an MOU, right? So they're forced to work with the Americans because that's their old ally. That's who they've depended on for protection. And they still have communication with him and investments with him. But yet they have to work with the Iranians, their neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's a multitude of factors, right? Firstly, the Saudis know that the United States is no longer a dependable ally. It's not as a dependable ally as it was, or at least under Trump. So they have to hedge, much like Europe does, at least for the next 2.5 years, right? That's if you get a more reasonable Republican or a Democrat, someone who's just not Trump, right? If you get even JD Vance, right? I don't think JD Vance would undertake this war. He was always against this war. Rubio wouldn't do this. I mean, it's not that they're not hawkish, but they wouldn't, I think, just go to a war with Iran. I think someone like Lindsey Graham, late Lindsey Graham, would have done that. But anyway, so the Saudis know that they have to sort of bide their time for a more favorable Trump U.S. administration to return. But at the same time, they also don't really have any other options. Yes, they have the strategic partnership with the Pakistanis, which has done fuck all. Excuse me, but like it's amounted to nothing. The Pakistanis are not exactly the bedrock of
No.
the bastion, the pivot, the pinnacle of military prowess. Let's be honest. But also because China, obviously, China's nowhere. China is a player here, but mainly in the soft power diplomacy side. The Chinese are not suddenly going to come in, even if they wanted to or could do. They're not going to because they don't want to into securitization in the Middle East. They have no interest. So my point is that the Saudis need, if they're going to have assurances, it's still the US. They can diversify, but they're not. The Saudis don't have enough money right now to put towards militarizing themselves as much as also needing to think about Vision 2030. Right, this whole vision of MBSs is completely out the window or in the toilet or severely set back at least. What
Well,
happened to the Lion City? Right, $1 trillion worth of money on a bloody city that you can see from the space because it's a line. Like, what is this lunacy? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the Iranians know that they have a lot more strategic clarity now. The war has demonstrated to them that their single biggest nuclear option is not a nuclear weapon. It's the Strait
mhm.
of Hormuz, geography. I mean, you've heard me say this a million times before. Trita reiterated it earlier as well. But like, this is what the Iranians, they knew that the Hormuz Strait was obviously valuable. It's geography. It's a navigation route, passageway, but they didn't realize just how much it was so important. Qatar has lost permanently its LNG for several years at this point. The globe has seen a fifth of its LNG supply just gone now for a couple of years because the Qataris couldn't get it out. So even if the Saudis have options outside of the Strait of Hormuz, like, the Suez or whatever, Red Sea, the Qataris don't, the Kuwaitis, the others don't. So the Iranians do have this leverage, this comparative advantage. And anything we think about this deal with the Omanis being some kind of, balanced deal, it's not. It's Iran dictating Oman and Oman largely sort of going along with it, I think.
Mhm.
And that's why I think, Iran hasn't just come out of this battered and bruised. I think it's come out in, again, you have to distinguish in what type, but in a strategic sense, it's stronger because it's a lot more clear, right?
Regarding the ammunition, Trump came out 15 minutes ago responding to your statements, calling you a liar,
Good.
Piotr.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's saying,
Right. Has
yeah,
he
yeah.
tweeted me? Because if he
No, no.
tags me in that tweet, I'll get so many follows. That'd be fantastic. Um,
He just said that he denies report that low ammunition supply. We have an unlimited supply of weapons, he says. We're in very good shape, Trump told reporters in Washington. We have literally massive amount of ammunition. I don't
oh
know
God, mate!
where he's seeing that.
I just realised
But
what you were doing. It's getting worse. No, go on. Sorry, keep going. I'll listen.
the White House and the Pentagon reportedly dispute a recent report that the supplies of both offensive and defensive weapons have dropped dramatically low. Trump earlier pledged to hunt down leakers following this report. So Trump is currently so upset about this report being published, very similar to the report that came out about his new Air Force One. He's like, we will have to investigate this. Whoever leaked this information is a traitor, and we will be hunting you down. If this offends you so much, it must be true. If this offends you so much that you want to hunt them down, this must be true. Because if it doesn't matter to you, then you wouldn't even care who brings a report like that.
Well, I mean, what do you want me to say? Would you? It's people who call Trump some strategic genius or that it's all part of a smoke and mirrors thing. It's moments like this that you can see just how well he's because if he was, he wouldn't allow shit like that to get to him. Right? This whole bullshit that he's playing not 4D but now 5D chess. What the fuck is 5D? What is
It's with
5?
the smell of the farts. You can smell the farts of what the opponent they're making. You can smell it. That's all. That's 5D chess.
Everyone. Well, thank you for joining this stream. I'm going to, I think, log off now because apparently, which is going to be starting, and I can smell it. I don't really know what the.
That's five. That's what they talk about. I've been to 5D, 5 dimensions movie theater before. They poke
Well, that
you.
was 4D.
They put scent in the room.
Well,
They the
what's
no
4D?
the 4D is the when they poke you, but they once they bring in smells and stuff, it becomes 5D.
Did they start eating my popcorn as well? Like, where are the limits here in my personal space?
I have no clue, but I've been to a 5D movie before, and I forgot in Florida, I think. They have like if
Oh,
my
they have
scissors are
five. They have 5D.
they have
Oh,
5D,
they
yes.
actually have a 5D cinema. What the hell? Okay, wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We paid extra money, and it was very short too. But you can smell the hamburger, you can smell the cheese, you can smell the ocean. You can
Oh, I
smell
see.
the
So
burning
they hide
tires.
the sense of what's on screen. Oh, that's quite cool, actually. Oh, that is quite
Yeah.
cool. Oh, okay. Well,
Uh,
that's definitely not. That's an insult. That Trump's an insult then if you're calling him 5D because that's actually quite a cool idea. Okay. Anyway, sorry, going completely off topic, everyone.
Yeah, yeah,
Um.
totally off
Oh,
topic, but it's there. It's there. Yeah, like I'm just saying, like that's what they're talking about. 5D, you can sense all your senses, but the Trump administration doesn't even have control of his basic senses. He can't even remember his 5 minutes of what he making a point later, like a minute ago. He just said, he just said 20 minutes ago that the war is going to end pretty soon.
yeah. But he's been said. Yeah, I remember when he said that in March, in April, in May, in June. He didn't say it in July because then they were at peace, and then he went back to war for some reason. Oh, did he?
Uh-huh.
Maybe he did say it in July. That's a joke. I think CNN made it pretty blunt. I think they counted how many times he said the war was close to an end or the deal
About
was imminent.
40 something,
About
40
no, it's
something.
on 50. Oh, it's like 56. Oh no, it's more than that. Would you get with the times? Come on, didn't you
I
know? Trump's just
mean,
said it now. He said it another 3 times. Um, yeah. So yeah, I just
I'm
anyway. What
looking
else?
it up as we speak. I'm looking it up as we speak.
To what you said. So, to be honest, I think that there is no way Trump can do
40
anything.
times.
No, it's more than that. It must be more than that. But yeah,
Over the
so
NBC News tracked it 32 times, but that
that's
was
one back.
maybe, yeah, CNN said 37 to 38. Democrat like tracker said 40. Like there's
Oh
someone
wow.
that's been keeping track. And he
Oh,
says
okay.
there's
I'm a propagandist because I'm inflating the actual amount. Regardless, I think it's pretty clear that these guys are now stuck, as we say in English, a sticky wicket. They are very much without a exit strategy, and um, let's keep in mind that this bilateral agreement over the Strait of Hormuz is just between Oman and Iran. It's not including the Americans. So, are we
no,
going to
no.
go back to the MOU? Are we going to see
This
a return to a version to
this has
JCPOA?
nothing to do with the war. The only thing that the Iranians and the Omanis are talking about is the maritime management over the Strait of Hormuz, and that is it. Today they're coming up about the ins and outs, and after they conclude that, tomorrow they will be talking about the fees that they will be charging. So
Do you
the
think
they're
that the Omanis are going to be charging a fee? Because I feel like the
whether the
Iranians
Omanis are going to be charging or not, the Iranians will be. It will be it's the Omani loss at that point, because Oman military altogether does not exceed 30,000 soldiers. With what
right.
military are you gonna control the strait? They don't have dominance over the strait. Though the only people who are actually driving at the driver's seat here is Iran.
Yeah.
So the Omanis can, like we say in Arabic, فاحط. They can drift donuts all day long trying to get a solution, but they're not. Whether they like it or not, the Iranians will be charging money, whether it is
Yeah.
for management, the environmental cost, or the management fee, or whatever they want to call it. They're gonna make a fee. They're gonna make money out of it. It doesn't matter what Europe wants. It doesn't matter what the United States wants. It doesn't matter what Asia wants. It is who actually is in control over the strait who can determine the cost. And the fact of the matter is, Europe is not interested in having this fight. And the United States is all alone, driven too thin to actually get in there. In fact, there is not a single destroyer close to the Iranian ports because Iran will target them. U.S. ships don't feel safe in the Persian Gulf. They're all the way by the Omani Gulf. That's a couple hundred miles away.
Hmm. I think to me, what this has just demonstrated is the power of geography, isn't it? There's a great book from about 10 years ago called Prisoners of Geography. It's written by a chap called Tim Marshall, who I know quite well personally. And
I have to look.
um, it basically, each chapter it's a good book, everyone. Actually, I recommend you check it out. I think it's available on Audible as well.
It's
But
very cheap actually. It's only $10, guys.
no, it's a good book. And it basically just talks about the importance of geographical features, right? But it's not just each chapter is a different country, and it varies between countries that have it really good. So the United States is blessed with good geography because you've got two massive maritime borders on either side, which makes it quite difficult to invade or quite easy to defend. Um, and then to the north and to the south, you've got relatively friendly nations. By contrast, Russia has it really bad because on the north, it's got the Arctic Circle, which is incredibly difficult to defend. It's got very flat land on the west, the Great Plains, which is why it was so easy for them, well, for Napoleon and the Nazis and so on to invade, and why the Russians now have this paranoia about war and a sense of insecurity. Iran is quite a challenging country to invade because you've got mountainous areas which act like natural barriers. You've got the Strait of Hormuz, which can be used as a stroke point. And then you've got arid desert, which is never easy to invade because you get stuck. It's hard to hide in. And certainly if you don't know the terrain, then it can be used against you. As in, you as a local. So, well, that's why, the Americans' operations in Vietnam was so bad because they didn't know the terrain. The Vietnamese did.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so it's a
Same
good
thing in
book.
Afghanistan. Same thing
Turkey's
in
another, Afghanistan, Turkey. Turkey's incredibly important for various different reasons. The Bosphorus, so it has a say on both European and Middle Eastern freight affairs. Um, yeah, so yeah, that's what I'd
And if
recommend you.
Afghanistan was such a struggle for the U.S. military might, Afghanistan mountain terrains is considered a playground compared to the mountain terrains of Iran.
Yeah.
Iran mountain terrains are so high and so mighty, and they're really hard to penetrate. In fact, that's why the Persian Empire was there for thousands of years, is because it was so hard to penetrate, whether from the sea or from land. And the you know and recently their mountains have even proven to be stronger than the largest and strongest bunker busters that the United States has, coming in a row one after another. If you think about it, some of the basic bunkers Iranians have are at least 500 meters inside of a mountain to 1 mile deep inside of a mountain. So going 1 mile deep underground is not a small thing to do, especially when you have nuclear technology. And I've been having people telling me, "Oh, what if we drop a nuclear weapon on there?" In fact, I will listen to nuclear weapon experts, and they have done the math. And the nuclear bomb needs to detonate from within inside the mountain in order to destroy everything, not from outside the mountain. Because if you hit the mountain from above, you're only gonna penetrate about 50 meters to 80 meters, even though it's a nuclear weapon. It destroys everything around it, but it doesn't penetrate deep. People don't know weapons. They just think they want to throw everything at what Iran has. And even if you threw a nuclear weapon at them, they would still withstand these nuclear blasts. The people wouldn't be able, but whoever living in the mountain is going to be fine. People don't talk about this because it's just boring math, but that's the math.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one way to put it. It's just the maths, but yeah, certainly, I just think that this isn't going to go anywhere, right? Um, it's this month is relatively slow. Even I think war in the Middle East seems to take a breather in August, like everywhere else is sort of off work. Even wars, even wartime has breaks. So we're just going to be in this situation, I think, and the war with Iran. You know, we had that brief moment where it crossed over with Ukraine striking that tanker last week, which was pretty nuts.
Uh-huh.
But nothing has come much of that, and yeah, I mean, it's just a
Let me.
matter of time before. Oh, go on.
I was gonna switch subject. It's only about time before what?
Oh no, it's not about time before anything. Before the Trump administration capitulates, I think they're going to
Ah,
have to frame it correctly. But I think that they're going to call it. Yeah, I do.
I was
It's
I
not
was gonna
saying.
switch the topic into Ukraine. I'm not a Ukraine expert. I'm not a EU expert. I'm not a Russia expert, but I know you are. Uh, things are there are plenty of developments happening between Russia and Ukraine. I'm seeing there is an escalation happening, but I'm not necessarily understanding the bigger picture. Could you help me understand the situation on the ground between Russia and Ukraine and where we are currently at? Because I know I only asked for an hour of you, and we have less than 15 minutes, so I want to be respectful of your time.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd say I've got probably about 10, 12 minutes here. The Ukrainian war, Russia war is multifaceted again. Largely speaking, the consensus is, unless you are everything pro Russia, as in a Putinist, the Russian economy is looking really bad. The structural challenges it faces, inflation, I've done a lot of coverage of this on my channel. People go and see it on a daily basis. Um, oh, I should actually use this opportunity to mention that I'm going to start doing more writing as well. Weekly Q and A's, weekly
Subscribe
live.
to Pyotr, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Subscribe if you want these, unique insider analysis because I do my video analysis on the channel on YouTube, but I'm going to start doing more writing pieces. So if you want some deeper dives that I won't be doing publicly or whatever, um, then consider subscribing. But anyway, for Ukraine, look, the main consideration is that it's always a toss up between who can outlast whom, the Russian economy and Putin's power, retain on power, versus Western support for Ukraine and Ukrainians' ability to defend its front lines. Now, in the past couple of years, this was always more hotly contested than it has been for much of this year. And I can tell you this for a fact because earlier this year, the Russians had basically, when Trump was reelected, and then it became apparent from a white paper, which is a sort of official government documentation internal, which basically explained that the Putin government had three scenarios here. One, the United States works with Russia to put pressure on Ukraine to end the war, or favorable to Russia's term. Second, the Trump administration withdraws all support for Ukraine, and Ukraine just cannot sustain its own defensive lines because Europe's not ready to fill that gap. Or third, the front lines collapse of some other way, or the Russians just push through. None of those scenarios are working. None of them are happening. The only things that are happening is that the Trump administration's distancing from Ukraine has triggered Europe to take up the mantle in a way that no one really expected. I think Europe's come through a lot more than people thought. There are stop gaps. There are issues. Don't get me wrong, but Europe has pledged, 80, $90 billion worth of support. And that's enough to keep Ukraine going. Secondly, the Trump has, well, like Iran, he's tacoed on Ukraine a lot in his support or not, or who he favors. Personally, he has I think, favoritism for Putin as a person over Zelensky, but Trump likes winners. And whilst he's a complete loser himself, especially in the current case of Iran, he believes that Ukraine is now winning. So he is going to support Ukraine if it means he can be on the winning side. I mean, the analogy that I used in one of my videos, and you can find that on the channel, is specifically about MAGAs, is the Spanish football team. When they won the World Cup, who wants to be in the fucking photo along with the World Cup? Donald Trump wants to stand there. No, sorry, I know I swear, people, if it's offensive,
Well, you
but
can
like,
swear as much as you want.
no, I know, but it's some people don't like swear words, although I think people need to, get used to it. Um, he is such a cretin. He stands there on the stage trying to make himself look like he's relevant in the World Cup to such an extent that the Spanish team even cropped him out of their own photos when they posted it on their Instagram and other social media website. They had to physically cut him out. And even Infantino, right, the president of FIFA, who is a piece of shit with his privatization efforts in the past 2 weeks, it is like, oh, we need to pull you out of the photo maids for the the actual football players. Anyway, my point is that Trump wants to be seen as on the right side. And so whether or not it's a perverse way to look at it, it's still beneficial because it demonstrates that even he thinks Ukraine is doing better. So right now we have a balance of power shifting. The momentum is shifting to Ukraine. The amount of pressure they're putting on Crimea is insane. And of course, desertions or defections or lack of signups in Moscow. I made a video on this just yesterday or 2 days ago. The Russians are really struggling to find people to sign up for the army. They have signing bonuses of 80 grand in some oblasts or regions, provinces. It's $150,000 just to sign up to the military. And this isn't me making up artificial information. This is firsthand from friends and colleagues or whatever that I have living in those parts of Russia. And this is unsustainable. So basically, Putin's in a conundrum now, Ajit. Either he accepts that the front line is failing and he calls a mobilization, right? He has to publicly admit that the SMO, his special military operation, isn't working. Or he doesn't call a mobilization, but then he has to accept that his front lines might be cracking. So he is in a catch-22. He can't get out of this very easily. There's purportedly 30,000 North Koreans who are on the way.
Yeah.
The Chinese are deepening support, but none of this is going to stop the strategic direction of this, which is that the Russians are not doing well. I'm not saying it's hunky dory for the Ukrainians. They have a manpower issue. They're, the continuous indiscriminate bombardment across the country is shattering what's left of the economy. It's difficult. It's unimaginable to live through for the average civilian. But you know, if you remove the emotion from it and just look at it purely cold and hard, militarily, the Ukrainians have the upper hand.
Well, I also was told that Russia is in a very similar situation with the United States regarding running out of ammunition. Um,
um, Not so much. Well, the Russian state is in a full. Well, this is why the comparisons are so absurd, right? When people are like, Russia is in a full military setting, we could defeat the Europeans if they ever tried to go to war with Russia. Well, you just sort of said it yourself. Russia's in a full-blown military setting. They're spending about $140 billion a year on that's it's more than 50% of the government budget now, not the
well,
GDP budget is going towards the economy. And it's to such an extent that you have two things. You have the civilian economy and you have the wartime economy or the military economy. The wartime economy is keeping the civilian economy up right now. That's how much money is going into
uh,
the military economy. So, and this is without even the Europeans aren't even activated. They're not in a wartime footing. The Europeans, without the United States and NATO minus as it's called, spend 400 billion on the collective defense. That's more than Russia and China combined. So, I mean, a lot of this is it's a bit idealistic. I'm not getting ahead of myself in saying that all of this would suddenly happen tomorrow. And I don't think the prospect of a European Russo war is remotely likely at the moment. But Putin has a very small time horizon. He does have large stockpiles, though, and that's because the military is able to churn out drones, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, whatever, relatively quickly and cheaply. Prior to Trump's war with Iran, which obviously didn't favor Putin, was Iran giving stockpiles of replenishments to Russia. They were working together. The Russians were giving satellite imagery to the Iranians, and in return, the Iranians are helping them with replenishment. But that's not, the Iranians still they need to take care of themselves first. So the biggest factor in this is China. China is tacitly or subtly supporting both the Iranians and the Russians with munitions replenishment. And, so it changes a Chinese non-lethal aid, if you like, as it's known, or in inertia, inactive, passive observance to active participation. So yeah, I would say that the Russians they have shelf life. The biggest concern, I think, in Russia's side is the economy.
yeah.
Does that? I didn't say. I think I just dumped a bunch of information on you, and you've kind of.
No, I follow. I follow. Um, I'm just trying to figure out if I should ask you another question, if I should start wrapping up the show.
Well, we've got a couple of questions in the live chat that I wanted to answer.
Go
Uh,
for it.
well, there's a couple from Betsy. Yeah, Betsy Braverman. I can always count on you for some good questions, Betsy. Thank you, and Gina. Um, although Gina's a more sort of ironic, I think, rhetorical. Betsy, so what do you think the Middle East might be like if the US completely? It won't withdraw. Firstly, because it's too logistically complicated. It's the same reason the Americans will never withdraw from NATO. Even Trump, for all his bullshit around Greenland and Spain and Poland or whatever, he's not going to pull out of NATO. It's too complicated, and also because, for what it's worth, even if the United States does absolutely nothing, it just sits there like a dormant, free rider in the back of the room. It's still a effective deterrent. NATO, and information sharing and military training and exercises, it's still beneficial. And ultimately, Trump doesn't have, I think, as much interest to go through every single individual NATO space and sort of cut it down like he did with USAID and other things. So I don't think that's going to happen with NATO. And so by comparison, I don't think it's going to happen with the Middle East, because the Americans have 800 bases globally. I'm not even going to pretend to know how many they have in the Middle East, but it's a lot. And to go through, look, how much did it cost? And what was the logistical nightmare that was withdrawing from Afghanistan? And that was just one base. So how are you going to do this in Kuwait, Qatar, which has 30,000 American troops, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Oman, etc., right? It's not going to happen. They can severely deplete it, but I don't think withdrawing it completely. But secondly, also because, and this is the misnomer or deliberate bullshit that people who are anti-America or whatever, the contrarians say, is that the Americans are in all those countries by, they're occupying. They're not. Every country welcomes. I'm not saying I agree with it, right? I want to be very clear that I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying purely from the standpoint legally, every country that hosts an American base does so because they're there at the welcome of the government. The Iraqis fight the war in Iraq over 2003 to 2014 or whatever, still welcomes those bases because the Americans helped them with ISIS. They helped them with jihad. They helped them with other forms of non-state actor interference. Again, ethically or whatever, right or wrong, different argument. Just the governments themselves, they as long as they say America, you can stay, those bases aren't going to go. If one day the Iraqis think, screw it, we want China, then that changes. But it's not going to happen for now.
That's gonna screw up the relations, but yeah, they could legally do that.
And then, do I think the UK bases some responsibility for assisting the Gulf regions with whatever comes next? How badly they messed it up. I mean, a bit of an. I'm not entirely sure. Like, how far back are you saying messed it up in the past? Are you talking about the Balfour Declaration and the division of Israel and Palestine? Are you talking about the general sort of breakup of the Middle East because of the British, French, Russians, and so on?
Well,
That's complicated. I would say not really. The Brits, for whatever reason, seem to still like to think that they're a global power, but they're not. I don't think they are. I don't know. It's I read an interesting article in Foreign Policy a couple of weeks back arguing that Britain is a global power still. I'm not sure. But, if the UK wants to sort of be seen as a global mediator, I guess they could. But to what end, right? The Brits don't have a base down there. They have bases in Cyprus, but I think the French are more relevant there because they have their influence with supporting and rebuilding or stabilizing Lebanon. Um, only at the behest, I think, of the Gulf states. If Saudi Arabia specifically said, "Hey, Britain, we want you as a mediator," so I fiddle with something when I speak. Do I think that would happen? But I don't think and also because we've just got a new prime minister in. He is more focused on domestic issues over foreign. And frankly, I don't think he knows much about the Middle East anyway. Um, so I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know. If they specifically request and Trump doesn't have a problem, then maybe Britain gets involved. But I think it's a bit of a crapshoot. Any other questions, or from you as well, man?
I
About
I was gonna ask a question, but you basically answered it. I was going to say, did Trump start the ending of the NATO alliance? And basically, your answer was no, but I didn't need to ask that question.
Oh, look, NATO can be defunded. It can be a husk of its former self, severely hollowed out. But is it the end of it? No. It's not going anywhere. It's the most comprehensive security alliance in human history. It's got, influence, and also because it's got relevancy, Vijay. I think after what we saw in Ceuta, the Spanish city in the north of Morocco, that is an issue for NATO. NATO has not just the eastern flank with Moscow, it has its southern flank with Africa. It needs to be working more with what you call Frontex, which is the European border control, and the north. The more that this is our hottest summer, I hope people are managing okay at home. But if you go around Britain in our parks, it's all desert, right? So point is that climate change is an issue. That's melting Arctic ice caps. So we're going to see more water usage, more maritime routes in the north around the Arctic. The Russians and the Chinese are very interested in this. That's going to be something that NATO has to deal with. What they call their high north. So NATO has a relevancy with or without the United States. I don't think it. I don't. Yeah. So
Yeah, I don't know. I want to take your take on the migration issue from Morocco.
oh,
I was
wow.
looking at my sources, and I was hearing that people were telling me in the Middle East that the King of Morocco let it happen on purpose because he was pissed off about how well along the Spaniards were getting along with the Algerians, especially that the Algerians and the Moroccans have always had their own conflict over ruling Northern Africa or whatever. That's my side of the connections telling me that like they're very pissed off with the Spaniards and that the relationship between Algeria and Spain was going too well, that this was a message to let the prime minister of Spain to know that they can send more people abroad and fuck with the economy if they want. That was the message I got from my sources. What did you get?
Um, well, I'd be curious what your sources are, would you, if I'm honest? Oh, okay. I'd be curious what your sources were, would you? Um, that's going to make my microphone really loud. Sorry, everyone. I think that it is a mixture of deliberate misinformation, or I guess just disinformation then, and a continued trend that is happening in Europe generally. Um, for what it's worth, my background is actually in migration, and I'm a population scientist by one craft, and migration to Europe has become a epidemic. It is a that what we saw on that day was an invasion. It was a concerted effort by tens of thousands of people to overrun a completely different country's sovereign territory. Now, I personally question why Spain needs those outposts. If I'm honest, just give it back to Morocco, and then you don't have this issue of illegal or irregular migration into EU territory in the first place. But aside from that, I mean, there was apparently information left online or Facebook posts, social media stating that, the Spanish had changed laws or something. And basically, some people argue that that was done by the United States and Israel because of Spain's deliberate prevention of using their bases during operations against Iran. I mean, I can understand the line of thinking, but I think it's a stretch because why wait till now to do this? Why wait until August to wait for the information to do it? Why not just do it as soon as you hide entry? Maybe it's a bit too close. I'm not sure, but I also think it's a little bit far fetched. Like invade Spain with more migrants because you're angry at the lack of diplomatic support you had during strikes on Iran. Like, what benefit does that give Tel Aviv or US? What, to get Pedro Sanchez out of office? The guy doesn't. I don't think there's an election due yet. So, and the guy's pretty popular at home because of his stance. So, what I think is interesting is the European response. That the Europeans, Maloney and others, were quick to condemn Spain and say, this is a problem to discontinue the Schengen area thing, which I think shows you that the EU is in this balance of like, it's a supranational body with Brussels as the hub of information control, but equally so a national government. So where does that ultimate control lie? This is the problem with it because the EU is not a country. It's a block of countries that still have given some of their control to Brussels, to von der Leyen and whoever, but not all of it. So this is where people like Trump, Putin, others can exercise that dispute or divergence for their gains. So I think the migration thing is a huge problem, though. Britain is a massive issue now. France doesn't look like France sometimes. So I think there has to be a Sweden. I mean, gosh.
Isn't the solution is to create stability where there is no stability? Like I hear people like you make a good point that it is an epidemic, but there is so much economic instability and wars that this has become the norm from war
Oh,
is
sure.
or
I mean,
instability.
well, sure. What caused it goes back to the original question of Britain, France, and other imperial powers in the Middle East. If we hadn't arbitrarily cut up the Middle East into random countries as they are, we wouldn't, the Kurds wouldn't be sharing land with the Iraqis, with the Azerbaijanis. Like it wouldn't be such a shit show of playing God and just being like, oh, we're just going to draw lines there. This is your new border, guys. Deal with it. That's why Africa has something. I mean, I could tell you that I've lived in Africa for a year. The borders are just cut up wherever you want. So you've got Sudan. The reason South Sudan split from Sudan was because half the country in the south was dominated by Christians, ethnic Christians, Catholics, and in the north it's predominantly Muslim. So no wonder the South Sudanese wanted to split away from Sudan. I mean, you still have an ethnic, a religious, and cultural differences, or linguistic differences in Sudan. So when it comes to migration, the Europeans are angry. Ironically, people on the right who are complaining about the immigration problem are often those who were the biggest supporters of, yes, British Empire, go back to the glory days.
Mhm.
Well, it's because of the British Empire they have an immigration problem, guys. So you can't have both ways. My point is, though, even with those considerations, sure, you need to stabilize the countries. We need to stop interfering on other countries' issues. We used to do it out of RTP, the right to protect, and this idea that the humanitarian approach was the best way, but it doesn't always work. Look at Somalia in the 90s. And the United States led a coalition into the 90s to it was known as Amisom and then Amisom 2. That's what Black Hawk Down is based on, the film, for people who know that film, right? The Americans thinking that they could arbitrarily remove the government, remove these jihadists, the terrorist threats, and install the democratic thing. And it led to the Somalian state being a complete, utter failed state, collapsed state, as some people call it, ever since, up until this day. So, my point is that we need to stop interfering in other countries' issues, right? As unfortunate as it may be, the loss of Gaddafi, as much as he's a horrible person, didn't really improve Libya. Libya got worse. The civil war between 2014 and 2020, 2021, that didn't improve it. But we do also have a right to defend our borders as well. I think we need to be fair about that as well, right? We need to discourage people from coming over to parts of Europe and support them by investing or doing whatever it is to incentivize, innovate, growth in their respective countries. So I'll leave it. I'll land with this last point, which is look at Syria. As soon as Assad was ousted by the BTS in 2024, how many Syrians went back to
A lot.
Syria from Germany? Like 2 million, not just from Germany, but like over 2 million Syrians returned. It was
Mhm.
insane. And that's because most people, it's called return migration. Most people want to return to their
Most
home
will be
land of
back there.
home, family and stuff. Yeah. Right. Most people would migrate for economic purposes. But ultimately, do they want to remain there? Not unless their family moves over. So yeah, I think that we need to incentivize people to return. We need to encourage better investment and opportunities. Half the reason people are wanting to leave Morocco is because there's no opportunities there.
I
So they
believe
claim.
I
So
believe one of the biggest reasons we're seeing a lot of European leaders really welcoming Al-Julani and his new marketing strategy to Ahmad al-Shara now instead of being called Al-Julani is specifically so they can be sending back the Syrian refugees back to Syria, creating a stable economy, creating a stable Syria, creating a stable Middle East means creating a stable Western society. They all go hand in hand. We all live on this globe together. We don't live in a different planet. There's just this one planet that we all live together in. Piotr, any last points you want to make? I want to ask everyone to subscribe to you. If you haven't heard of Piotr yet, you should. He's quite big on YouTube and Twitter. He's just starting on Substack. So please subscribe to him. If you haven't considered becoming a paid subscriber, consider becoming a paid subscriber. He is shy of asking people to become paid subscribers. I am not. So he knows what he's talking about, and he knows what he's doing. So take a minute, subscribe to him, support his research, support his work. He knows a thing or two about Europe and the Middle East, and I believe that you should give him your time and money. Piotr, what's your last points for this talk show?
well, I'll put it. I'll follow on from what you just said. Look, guys, um, I have a particular ethos in mind when it comes to my show. I spend a lot of time trying to understand what I wanted to do with my podcast and generally where I sit. Being half Russian, half English, I have a unique perspective in being brought up in both sides of this conflict, especially the war in Ukraine, if that makes sense, or this tug of war. And I think that it's reflected in that I support democracy, I support Western liberal ideals. Um, but I think we need to adapt. We need to change because the world is moving a lot faster than a lot of us can get used to. AI, great power competition, use of hard power, irregular warfare, economic uncertainty. These are all things that the West, which has been dominant for the past 80 years, it's still going to be a big player. Don't get me wrong in the collective West, but we need to do more to innovate, to modernize, to adapt, and understand how to navigate this international disorder, as I call it. So that's the way that I approach my analysis and my hosting of guests. You know, we speak with Wajir. He's kind enough to host me, but often it's me hosting other people. We had a chap called General H.R. McMaster on. We're having David General Petraeus, who was the commander in charge of all the Iraqi and Afghan operations, and then the CIA director. And we're going to have another lady called Sarah Payne back on, who's become very popular because of his sort of historical comparative analysis. So, bottom line is, I am more active on Substack now, and if you're interested in that, then do subscribe. I'm not going to push you to pay. If you don't want to pay me, that's fine. But I will be doing more for paid subscribers as well. So there's my pitch to you. No expectations, but if you want to have yourself challenged intellectually, I try to be balanced. No, I try to be diverse. That's the word I use. I try to be diverse. I'm not going to say I'm balanced. I'm not going to say that I'm objective. I have my biases, but I diversify the people I engage with. And if you're interested in that, then you know where to find me. But thanks, Jay, very much for hosting me as always, and I look forward to doing it soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Thank you for joining us, Piotr. If you are just watching, you're definitely watching or recording this on YouTube. Come and join us on Substack. Believe it or not, tomorrow I have a very special interview. I'll be interviewing Dexter Ingram, head of the anti-terrorism task force that was responsible for defeating ISIS and Al Qaeda. And we'll be discussing the new Middle East and what it looks like and this war with Iran. So stay tuned. I love your faces. And as always, remember, you may not fuck with politics, but politics will always fuck with you. Like, subscribe, and share. مع السلامة. Bye bye. بالإنجليزي. Goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good one.